It looks like we're live, huh? Oh, wait a second. What's posting here, Marcus? I got a picture of you just standing there.
That's weird.
How you doing? But now we look like we're live. Cool. We're live. Hey, folks. Thanks for tuning in. We got the technology figured out. We are doing another episode of Elk Talk Live, brought to you by the great folks at Bowtech, at Loopold, at Onyx Maps, Go Hunt. Oh gosh, Ripcord, Tight Spot, Black Gold. Yeah, all those. And like we always tell you, any of our partners that have promo codes, use Randy, R-A-N-D-Y, and I know at Onyx you're going to get 20% off their app products, and at Go Hunt you're going to get $50 of store credit in their gear shop. But we hope you'll share all these with everyone, and we hope that you'll text Randy, R-A-N-D-Y, to 77453 so that you'll always be notified when we're doing this. Last week, we had the idea, the premise, the whole theme was hunt elk every year. And we just barely scratched the surface. Barely scratched the surface. So we thought, you know what? Let's just continue on with that discussion and see if we can answer some more questions about it. So we've copied some of the questions we didn't get to last week, and hopefully we'll get a whole bunch more this week, and we'll be able to maybe add some more depth to what I think was just the start of a really cool discussion. One of the questions that came up last week, and it comes up often, is someone asked, why do I have to hire a guide to hunt elk in Wyoming? And the answer is you don't. The only time a non-resident needs to hire a guide in Wyoming is if you hunt in a federally designated wilderness area. All of the rest of it, free to go. You don't need a guide, outfitter, anything like that. What do we got, Marcus?
Audio glitched out for a second.
We okay?
It's going now.
All right.
Is your thing tightened down?
No.
Or just check the...
Oh, Marcus says, hopefully you guys aren't picking this up, but you see, I got to wear one of these things the whole time we're doing this. So you get to see a little bit about what the production activity is here. But with Wyoming, you don't have to use a guide just because it's public land, only if it's designated wilderness area. And some people will say, oh man, that's such a ripoff. And I'm not a big fan of that law, trust me. But here's something to think about. Most of the western states give non-residents 10% of the tags, some even less. Wyoming gives us lots and lots of tags. They give us, I think, 30%, 20 to 30% of the deer tags and 30% of the antelope tags. They give non-residents 16% of the limited entry elk tags. So as much as we may not like that wilderness outfitter requirement, I'm happy with how Wyoming does things. So I'm not going to raise too big of a stink over that. Randy, if you had 6 points for elk in Wyoming, so remember we talked about in Wyoming, they have 3/4 or 75% of the tags go in the preference point draw, and 25% are just a random draw. So this person says, I've got 6 points. Would you do a limited entry hunt in western Wyoming, or would I go in the bighorns? It would depend on if I was an archery hunter or a rifle hunter. If I was an archery hunter, I would see if I could get one of those bighorn archery only tags, the type 9 tags. If I'm not an archery hunter, I'm probably looking to western Wyoming. So, let's see. We got... What are my thoughts on the Howa Model 1500 rifle? I love them. I got a whole bunch of them. For starting to put out of state for elk, what order would you start? It would depend on my budget, like I said last week. Remember that Idaho and New Mexico do not have a point system. So by not having a point system, you who are new to the game have the same odds as I do, even though I've been applying in all these states for decades. So think about that. Then as far as buying points, it's a toss-up of what you want to get out of your investment between Arizona and Wyoming. If you like applying for a whole bunch of other species like desert bighorn sheep, pronghorn, deer, mule deer, or Coues deer, if you like to go and hunt javelina, dove, quail, everything else, Arizona is going to give you a better return on your investment. Other than that, it would be Wyoming. If you're strictly, hey, I'm an elk and nothing else guy, then you're probably going to get a better return buying points in Wyoming. After that, I'd say Colorado, Montana, and then we get down into the other states of Utah and Nevada. Like I said last week, Utah and Nevada are tough states because you're only going to draw probably once in your life, maybe twice. You're buying non-resident, non-refundable licenses all this time. You're paying application fees. It's an expensive game to add those two states to your list. So that's kind of how I approach it anyhow. Randy, how important are naps while elk hunting? Absolutely critical. If you don't take a nap while you're elk hunting in the middle of the day when it's beautiful, sunny, the aspens are blowing, your odds of killing an elk that day just went down. At least for me. Randy, do you like the 308 or the 7mm08 for elk, and why? I prefer the 308. I can step up to higher grain bullets, so I shoot 165 grain bullets out of my 308. My 7mm08, I usually shoot 140 grains. So it just, my preference, either will work. I just like a 308 because you can have more bullet options. And remember, I'm always an advocate of high quality bullets. Those of you who watch our content, you know that I shoot Nosler partitions out of my 308. Super, super high quality bullet. Randy, with overlapping application periods, what happens if you draw 2 tags but you can only go on 1 hunt? Woo! Be happy. I think last week we talked about that. In some of these states, they have what's called a point guard system. In Arizona, some states, not Wyoming, not Montana, but in some states you can turn your tag back and you forfeit your fee, but you'll be able to figure it out. Mostly, just be happy. What do we got, Marcus?
Static's pretty bad.
Uh-oh. Marcus says we got a bunch of static. You want me to change the mic and everything?
Yep.
Uh-oh, folks. We're going to do a midstream audio thing here. We don't know what the problem is, but when you have to do this stuff, see, you kind of do this. I could probably do this in my sleep. And then Marcus, oh, we still got static on that one. How we doing? Any better? Or are we still rubbing? How we doing?
Good.
All right. Sorry, folks. How was that? That was like a NASCAR tire change there, Marcus. We're getting pretty good at this. The number 45 guy over there. But, all right. So, how's it? Everyone's saying that our volume is low on our audio.
Yeah.
All right, Marcus is working on that. We didn't want to get blow your ears out, as they say, because of all the scratching on the microphone. So, all right. I'm going to some of these questions. All right, someone's saying, crank that volume. A lot quieter now. Sound low, hard to hear. All right, we got it. We're working on it, folks. Randy, have you heard any of the test results from the chronic wasting disease on the special laid hunts in Montana? I've not. We had a special season here after the regular season over in south central Montana. Some of the places that have done testing during the regular season, they've come back with no positive tests, so let's keep our fingers crossed and hope that's the case. What are some of the tips and tricks you use on OnX to find elk sanctuaries, features to look for, types of landscape? Rather than go into this long discussion here, go to our YouTube channel. We did a series called E-Scouting, E-Scouting. And we walk exactly through this. It's a 4-video series about how we identify it, how we then hunt those places, how we put together a day-by-day plan for a 5-day hunt. So I wish I could say it was, a 2-second answer or 2-minute answer. It's not. There's a lot to it. Do I recommend Cabela's tag service to apply for draws? For me, applying for your applications is way too important to hand it off to anybody. Nothing against the Cabela's tag system. I don't let anybody do my tag applications. I do them. If I'm going to screw something up, it's going to be on my lap. So That's what's the website for applying for Colorado mule deer next year? Colorado Parks and Wildlife. Just Google Colorado Parks and Wildlife. That's where you'd go and make your application. You're going to hear us talk a lot in the videos we're doing right now about the service Go Hunt. And the reason we focus on it so much this time of year is because this time of year is application season. We have application season, fishing season, and hunting season, right, Marcus?
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. Application season is January 1st to about the end of April. And we spend a ton of time on our Go Hunt Insider service. And again, like I said, if you use the promo code Randy, you're going to get a $50 store credit there. What do I think about the limited draw hunts in Arizona for elk? Low harvest success. We were just talking about that the other day. People said, how do you guys draw so many Arizona elk tags? Well, what this person is talking about is Arizona regs just came out the other day. And if you go and download them, you'll see that it has, okay, general rifle hunts, some other hunts, antlerless hunts, and then it said limited opportunity hunts. The reason that we end up with a lot of Arizona elk tags is we apply for those limited opportunity hunts. And the reason we do is better draw odds because non-residents are not subject to the 10% cap. Non-residents could draw every one of those tags. We won't, but we could because there's no cap. So I can think of 3 of our elk hunts in Arizona that were on limited opportunity tags. So to answer the question, what do I think of them? I love them if I want to go hunting in Arizona. And yeah, the harvest rates are a little lower, but there's still elk there. You just got to hunt a little harder and know that it's going to take a lot more effort. But you're in Arizona, so. Oh gosh, have I ever used pack dogs for backcountry hunting? No, I haven't, but our buddy Dusty Rowe up in British Columbia, if you go to our podcast, Hunt Talk Radio, I think it was last summer, he talked about using his dogs for hunting. It's very, very cool to hear about how he does it. So, all right, what else we got? Is the only reason I prefer the 3rd rifle season in Colorado because of less hunters, primarily. It will be my first time elk hunting in October or November this year. Personally, I like the 3rd season. I say primarily fewer hunters. The other reason is there's a lot of hunting pressure in the 2nd season just prior to that. And if you think about elk, they're kind of dispersed across the landscape, and when hunting pressure comes, they start grouping up. And especially bulls, they start going to certain places. So by the 3rd season, these bulls are in very predictable spots. And the whole landscape, they're no longer scattered. There's large portions of the landscape that have no elk. But when you find where they are, the little pockets, the sanctuaries, they are there predictably and they are there in pretty dense numbers. So that's why I like the 3rd season rather than the 2nd season. I know everyone's got a different opinion on that, but that's mine. How awesome was the moose hunt with my son Matthew? It was like as awesome gets. Matthew was home for Christmas, and I think we ate 2 meals of moose meat in the few days that he was home. So I hope everybody gets the chance to go moose hunting someday. Randy, why do you hate on the 6.5 Creedmoor? I don't hate on the 6.5 Creedmoor. I have one. It's a better round for energy and wind than the 308 after 200 yards. We'll save that discussion for a different day. Really high velocity cartridges. I definitely carry energy, but I'm also interested in a lot of other aspects besides just energy. Weight of the bullet, size of the bullet. So I have a Creedmoor. I love it. So I don't hate on it. It's just when I'm hunting elk, I'm going to use something probably that's a 30 caliber, 308 being it. Bryce Nelson just bought a Howa 308. Howa handshake, he says. Cool. Thanks for doing it. Let's see. In your earlier shows, you used to use a wall tent quite a bit. Do you still use it? If not, why? I've found that, and I gave one of those wall tents to Marcus. I've got rid of the other ones. And the reason being is I've found that the Hillyberg tents that I use are way easier to pack. They're, for most of our hunting, they're just as comfortable. They're more versatile. Hauling around 2 wall tents, one for me and a guest hunter and another for the camera crew, is a lot of stuff to haul around. So I got away from it, and then you end up with stoves and you end up with having to get firewood. I've found that for the way we hunt, the way we plan things, it's actually getting easier to use these Hillyberg tents that we use. Let's see, if you had a 30-day vacation, what dates would I take? If I was an elk hunter, I would take probably September 7th through October 7th. Those are my 30 days. And I'm going to find some place where the elk are bugling like crazy. Those would be my 30 days. What's the difference between a limited entry elk tag and a general normal elk tag? Limited entry tags, and this is a common question for people who don't live in the West. So in the West, just about every state, our tags you have to put into a drawing. There's a limited number of tags. So that's why they call it limited entry. Only so many people are going to get a tag. Whereas back in Missouri or Pennsylvania or New York, you just go to the sporting goods store and buy your license, right? That's all you got to do. There's none of this application stuff. Well, in the West, especially for non-residents, every state I know of, with the exception of Colorado, your elk tag opportunity, you have to apply in a limited entry draw. So you put your hat put your name in the hat. There's, say, 100 tags, maybe 500 people apply. You got a 1 in 5 chance. That's what a limited entry tag is. A normal or general tag are tags that you can just go and buy over the counter, buy at your sporting goods store, buy online. Colorado has second and third over the counter tags. Idaho does have, they have caps on how many elk tags by zone, but they never sell them out. So in effect, they're really a general over the counter tag. But that's really the difference. What is a good bow setup for elk? Funny you should ask. Right here. This is set at 60 pounds. It's got a 29-inch draw length. It's going to be, I shoot a really heavy arrow and broadhead. It's going to be going, I think this one is at 260 when we did the chrono on it. Going to be way more than enough for elk. In fact, I know a lot of people who shoot 55 or 50 pounds, and if they have a quality setup, quality arrows, quality broadheads, you're going to be just fine for an elk. So that was my new Bowtech Realm X. I have a Rain, I have a Prodigy, I have all kinds of them. Let's see, do I like the VX6 over the VX5 Leupold rifle scopes? I can't say really that they're both really good. And I have a VX5 on my 308, I have a VX6 on my 7mm 08. It's really hard to tell much difference. The VX6, you can get more features on it. And I'm not always that much of a feature guy, so I want something just plain Jane. As much as that might not be the smart thing to do. They're both absolutely just really good scopes. So you can't go wrong with either of them. Let's see, do I shed hunt? If you watch some of our elk content, you know that when I find shed antlers, I hang them in trees. I don't bring them home. And Marcus knows that because he's been along when I've hung some in trees. But I let you bring that one home from New Mexico.
Yeah.
Yeah. You got anything that we're skating through here?
So here's a question. If my brother and I want to guarantee we both draw tags in Wyoming, do we apply for a party tag?
If your brother and I both want to draw tags in Wyoming, do you apply as a party? Yes, if you want to make sure both of you draw. So understand, this whole hunt elk every year has got the strategy of have a plan for these limited entry tags. If they don't work, go to the fallback over the counter tags in Colorado and Utah, possibly a leftover in Montana. If you both want to go, you need to do a party application. Every state says if you go and do a party application, you go into the drawing as though you're one application. You get one random number. But if you get drawn, if your random number gets pulled, both or however many people are in your party, in this case too, both of you get tags. Whereas if you apply separately, one of you might draw, the other may not. So if you want to make sure you both get a tag, do a party application. Randy, do I recommend a spotting scope on an archery hunt? I don't. On rifle hunts, I don't go elk hunting without a spotting scope. But on archery hunts, you're really dealing with a lot of what I call run and gun. You're listening, you're knowing where they're at. With your binoculars, you can see what's going on. I don't do a lot of glassing in archery season. Now in rifle season, it's just the opposite. I'm not going without my spotting scope. Just how it is. And a lot of people ask, well, what spotting scope? I have the Leupold Gold Ring. I have an 80 millimeter and a 60 millimeter. The 60 millimeter is just really compact and light. When you're doing these backpack hunts, when you're going a long ways, I don't think there's any 60 millimeter out there that is as compact and as light as the Leupold Gold Ring. In fact, I know there isn't. And the quality of the glass is excellent. So that's probably my go-to spotting scope. Randy, when you're walleye fishing, are you jigging or trolling? I'm trolling with crankbaits. Here's one we were going to talk about on the podcast today, Marcus, but we ran out of time. What is your off-season workout plan? Marcus would almost have to answer that because my off-season plan is go down to my CPA firm and disinherit the federal treasury. And I drive a desk for a living in the off season. Mostly what I do is I find any excuse I can to go get exercise. I try to go on hikes, but this time of year I'm really busy, and so I don't get as much exercise as I'd like. After April 15th, then I really get into the hiking regimen again. For me, my off-season summer workout plan is hiking. Hike, hike, hike. I have yet to find any machine, any piece of gym equipment that replicates the body, the core muscle situation of hiking with a pack on uneven terrain, uphill, downhill, underneath stuff. And as the summer progresses, I just put more and more in the pack. I go further distances, and if I really want the cardio workout, I just push myself to go faster and faster. So that's really what I do. When is new content being loaded on our Amazon channel? So last week we told you we had a surprise. Well, guess what? We left Outdoor TV. We are no longer on Outdoor TV after 9 years. You can catch all of our stuff now on Amazon. If you have an Amazon Prime subscription, it's free, and we are loading those up. Right now, seasons 3, 4, and 5 are up there. We just, I think on Sunday or Monday, there's a new episode out there from season 6 that we just filmed. Season 6 is the season we just got done, we got out of the field. So we're going to take new episodes, put them on Amazon for 2, 3, maybe a month 2 or 3 weeks, a month at the most. And then they're going to YouTube. So whether you have Amazon Prime or YouTube, whichever you have, you're going to get to watch them. It's just they're going to Amazon Prime first. So thanks for asking. That's here's one. Can I recommend a good first aid class for backcountry hunters? I don't know where you live, but here in Montana, we have a bunch of backcountry first aid classes, and there's online classes. You can Google them and search them. But if you can, go do a hands-on one. We and our crew, in fact, I don't know that Michael's been to one. Michael's not here tonight, but I've told Michael he's going to a backcountry first aid class. It's very helpful, and you hope you never have to use it, but it's very comfortable, or comforting, I guess, to know that everybody is prepared if something happens. So, what's my take on consuming CWD positive meat? My take on it is don't eat it. There's a reason why the states say, you know what, if your animal tests positive, you can dispose of it. They actually want you to dispose of it in a place that is, don't go throw it out there because you might be spreading the prions or prions, however you pronounce it. I wouldn't touch it if it tests positive. Did you go with Marcus to fill that Wyoming tag with a cow? No, we haven't went there yet, and we're looking at the calendar. In a week, Marcus is heading to, is it in a week or 2 weeks? You're going to Arizona. How long? 2 weeks. He's going to Arizona archery hunting. I hit the trade show circuit in 10 days or so, so that window is closing and closing, unfortunately. But I guess that's just a cow and her calf will be extra elk for somebody to find next year. So do you plan or have you already done a podcast of your thoughts on Bear's Ear and other monuments? Marcus and I just did that about 4 or 5 hours ago. So it'll be up on our podcast, the Hunt Talk Radio podcast, soon. So have I done any mountain lion hunts? I'm not, I've not. I've tagged along with Tyler Jonerson, one of our camera guys. He's got hounds. He's an amazing houndsman. He trees 30 to 35 lions a year, and some years he doesn't even take one of them. Some years he might take one or two. But for me, lion hunting is about the dogs. And since I'm not the one training the dogs, handling the dogs, it just seems like a hollow story for me to walk up to a tree and take a lion when someone else and their dogs have done years and years of work to get to this point. So I enjoy watching his dogs work, but I've never imposed on him to say, hey, can I come with and take a lion? So when the leftover tags go on sale, what's your strategy for picking a tag? It depends on the state. Some of them you got to call in. Some of them you got to be online at like 5 in the morning. It depends on the state. So my strategy is to look and see, do any of these fit my calendar? If they do, or if I need one and I want one, how does that state do it? And you got to be on the ball. They go fast. Wyoming, they sell out so fast in Wyoming. How do I keep myself hydrated? Oh, I didn't bring it. I have a pack. You see me carry my Mystery Ranch Metcalf pack, and I have a Platypus 2 or 3 liter, I think it's called Big Mouth, hydration bladder. You'll see this blue tube that hangs out. I've tried every hydration bladder well, not every one, but I've tried a lot of them, and every one of them have failed except the Platypus one. So that's why I used the Platypus ones. You got anything I'm missing, Marcus? Ooh, boy, what happened there? What'd I do?
Someone asked, how do you handle hunting in deep snow?
How do I handle hunting in deep snow? A couple ways. First of all, get gaiters. You see we wear these Canatrek gaiters. If you are not wearing gaiters and there's snow, even if it's not that deep of snow, what happens is your pant leg, the cuff of your pant starts getting wet from the body heat that melts the snow. And then it creeps up your pant leg, and then it touches your sock. And when it starts touching your sock, water has this adhesion effect. It's not osmosis, it's adhesion. The molecules start attracting to each other. So you got a moist sock from your perspiration that's touching a damp pant leg. And pretty soon that moisture starts working its way down into your boot. And a lot of people say, oh, my boots leak. No, the odds are they just aren't wearing a gaiter to protect that part of their pant and their boot. So that's the first thing I do in deep snow. The other thing I do is I use trekking poles. You see me, I use trekking poles all the time. Because a lot of times in deep snow, you can't see what's under there. You can't see, especially when you're going downhill, you can't see a lot of these rocks. You can't see some of these deadfalls. I just don't go without some sort of trekking pole or a walking stick. Whatever it is that works for you. Holy cow, we have got pages and pages of this. We might have to do the same discussion next week just to even start on these questions. Holy cow. Do you have any luck hunting springs, or do elk need a more abundant water source? It depends on where you're at. If you're in an arid state like Arizona, Nevada, Utah, New Mexico, a very little seep or spring, man, it will do all you need to attract elk. Now, if you get up here in the northern Rockies of Idaho, Montana, Wyoming, every drainage has a spring or a creek going through it, so it's a less effective tactic to focus on. It really depends on where you're at. Looking at the Colorado winter range migration corridor, so this person is out on the Colorado, they call it the mountain or the Hunter Atlas, interactive Hunter Atlas on the Colorado Parks and Wildlife website. And so looking at the migration corridors on this map, will bull elk venture far from those sanctuaries, those areas for sanctuary? They will some if hunting pressure pushes them. Remember, the place to look for them is if it's a mild winter, they're still going to be further up towards the summer range and further from the winter range. If it's a really hard winter, they're going to be closer to the winter range and farther from the summer range. But because you see those corridors on the map, it doesn't mean that it's like a sign or a road where the elk are like, oh, there's where I got to migrate. They will be off to the sides of that. Some of them will take their own route, their own path. So don't think that that's the only place that they're going to be if you know that you're hunting, say, maybe a third season with a lot of snow or a fourth season and they're on their way to the winter range. They could still be off to the sides of those corridors. Randy, due to a rotator cuff tear, I can only draw 40 pounds. Is that okay for an elk hunt? Some states say they have actual restrictions on what kind of kinetic energy you must have. It must shoot an arrow of this weight and grain, X amount of distance, or at X feet per second. I would check the regulations first of all. 40 pounds is really getting down there. Some people will say, no, it'll work, and maybe it will with a perfectly placed close shot. I feel bad. I've got labrum problems. I've got all kinds of problems with my right shoulder, so I know what you're talking about. There's no way I can pull 70 pounds anymore with my shoulder and my wrist, and I pull 60. Someday I might be at 55, but it would probably work, but if there's any way you can get that up a little bit higher, it'd help. What do you got, Marcus? Anything? Opinion on the new app that sells elk locations. Oh boy, that's a whole big can of worms. Needless to say, I think it takes a lot from the hunt. I don't, what does the rest of society think if we can just call up and say, hey, I want to buy those GPS coordinates to that big buck that you saw? When is it hunting and when is it just shooting something? So I won't go into any more detail than that, but so again, want to make sure everybody understands that this Elk Talk Live stuff is brought to you because of the generosity of these sponsors who they pay all this cost. They're the ones who distribute it, and without them, there's no way it would work. So hopefully you'll be sharing this with your friends and you'll text Randy, R-A-N-D-Y, to 77453 because I think, looking at the calendar, next week we're going to go on a Wednesday. The following week we might go on a Tuesday because I got to head out to a trade show. So in trade show season, our schedule gets a little bit funky, so make sure that you're subscribing and you'll get a text notification of when we're ready to go live. And again, the great companies that provide this to us, can't thank them enough. Bowtech, Leopold, Onyx, Go Hunt, Ripcord, Tight Spot, Black Gold, Elk Foundation, who knows what else. Am I missing anyone, Marcus? I think we're good. Let's see. Do you ever think your camera crew might leave you for the crows for taking them into the places you do? That's a question for you, Marcus.
Nah.
No, Marcus said, nah. We're not leaving you to the crows. Randy, what trade shows do you go to? This year I'm going to be at the SHOT Show, the Wild Sheep Show, and the Backcountry Hunter and Anglers Rendezvous. Have I ever hunted elk in Idaho? I've not. I've hunted deer in Idaho. Someday I hope that Idaho gives me one of these great limited entry elk tags that I sometimes apply for, but so far I'm 0 for however many years. But what is the favorite hunt that I've ever had? Boy, whatever one I'm on that day. I know that's kind of a cop-out answer, but I love being out there, whether I have the tag or someone else has the tag. Where do I zero my rifle, 100 yards or 200 yards? I do 100 yards. Nothing wrong with 200 yards, but I'm not a long-range bomber. I'm not one of those guys who wants to take 500-600 yard shots. Probably, if I can't get to 350, sometimes I'll stretch it to 400 if everything's perfect. But for me, hunting is about getting closer. So 100-yard zero with my CDS dials on my Leupold VX5 or VX6, 100-yard zero is perfect for me. So how do I stay warm? That's interesting. We did a whole bunch of YouTube videos out on our YouTube channel that talk about how to stay warm. One video is about how to keep your hands warm. One's how to layer up, keep your core body warm. Another video is about how to keep your feet warm. I grew up in a place in northern Minnesota where you needed to really be good at staying warm. So I'm not good at many things, but staying warm is one of the things I'm pretty good at. Let's see. What do elk do when there are fires? How much smoke do they tolerate? There's not much they can do. They got to tolerate the smoke. They just do what they can. They try to get out of the path of the fire, but there's, an elk doesn't have the luxury we have of, oh man, I got to go 30 miles away to get away from this fire. They just got to hang out and do it. So elk hunting or fires can affect elk hunting, but they're going to affect them for short periods of time and very localized, not in large swaths. Let's see. What do you do when you're finding sign but not seeing elk or hearing anything during the peak archery rut season? I call more. If you're seeing sign, hopefully it's fresh sign. If it's not fresh sign, you might be in one of the other places that they would occupy a different time of the year. So make sure it's fresh sign. And if it is fresh sign, I just keep moving and calling. So will elk drink in fast-moving water or only in puddles? I've seen them drink out of rivers. So I think they will. I suspect it's probably easier to drink out of a puddle, but I've seen them drink out of creeks, out of rivers. Let's see. I've always heard that elk are on a 3-day rotation through their territory. Is that true? That's not my experience. I don't see any predictability to like a 3-day rotation. They are there or they're up and they go somewhere else. It's not like they make loops and they're traveling just for the heck of it. Now in the rut, you might see them moving back and forth and they're way more mobile, but I don't really see anything like that. Do I have any interest in hunting elk in Michigan? I have interest in hunting elk in every state. Michigan, Kentucky, Pennsylvania, you name it. But a lot of the eastern states don't have a large enough population that non-residents can even apply. Kentucky you can. I think Pennsylvania you can. I don't know if you can in Michigan. And even if I could, the odds are like really, really small. So I'm going to focus on other states. Michigan is not one of the states to include in your plan of hunt elk every year. So what do I do with all my ivories? I got them in a bag in my shop. Need to figure out what to do with them. You got anything, Marcus?
Someone asked, can foreigners apply for elk tags in the United States? Which states?
Right. Can foreigners apply for elk tags in the United States? Yes. Every state I know of treats foreigners the same as they do non-residents. So if you live in Australia, come on, come do it. So, oh boy, a lot of these, the hard part is we get a lot of questions and we're trying to sort out what are new ones and what are questions that are common so that we know we're covering the stuff that people have. If we don't get to your question, it's not because it's not a good question, it's just the way that we pick these and select them. There is a method to our madness. So, do I think going the first week of September for archery elk is too soon? I don't think it's too soon. I prefer to go the second week or later, but there's a guy filming this right now who he takes the first week of every season, and you guys shoot elk every year, Marcus, so maybe you should answer that question. You guys shot, your wife Kara shot hers first week of season this year, right? Yep. Last year you shot yours the first weekend of season.
We both did. Yeah.
Oh, you both did last year. So there's your answer, folks. Nothing wrong with going the first week of season. Let's see. Holy cow. There are so many of these. Some of them are political. I'm not touching that. Oh, I can't touch this one either because I was using a prototype of that this year. I can't talk about that. Boy, you guys ask me questions. You guys are putting me on the spot here. What is my favorite bird to hunt? A rough grouse, or as they call it in the upper Midwest, partridge. White meat, big, fat, plump, juicy things, man. Foomp, foomp. If I'm chasing a bugling elk and there's a rough grouse, that elk's just going to have to wait because he's not going to get to be a TV star until either that grouse flushes and flies away or I kill him. What bull to cow ratio do I look for? That's a good question because a lot of people ask me, how do you pick a unit? Part of it is I look for total herd size, I look for bull to cow ratios, and I look at harvest success. And with bull to cow ratios, if the state reports those for the units, I'd like to be at about 20. Getting under 20, then 20 bulls per 100 cows, you're getting on the slimmer side. You get above 20, it's like, whoa, there's a lot of bulls around here. Some of the areas I've hunted in Arizona, they report that the bull to cow ratio is 40, 44 bulls per 100 cows. That's like off the charts. Most general areas in the West, you're going to be in the low double digits. Some of the areas that get hunted really, really hard, the mature bull ratio to cows can be single digits, and I avoid that. I'm not hunting, if I can help it, I'm not hunting a unit that has 9 or 8 or 4%, 4 bulls to 100 cows. I'd like to be closer to 20. So, you got anything more, Marcus?
Yeah, someone asked about a late season spike in Nevada, and there hasn't been much weather that has come in. Do they go onto the winter grounds by instinct, or would they be up higher?
Someone's asking that they have a late season spike tag in Nevada. Nevada's been issuing a lot more spike tags lately. Where will the elk be? Will they be up higher or will they be down lower because there's not been much winter? The spikes are with the cows right now. Wherever the best feed is, whether it's high or low, it's probably, even though there's not a lot of snow, the better feed is probably lower right now. That's where you're going to find the spikes. Find the cows, you're probably going to find the spikes. So, if sheep have pushed elk out of an area, I assume you're talking domestic sheep, how long before they come back in the area? It depends on what's left there for forage. Elk are going to go where the best forage is. So when the sheep, quote unquote, push them out, they would only push them out because they've taken the forage that the elk need. If they haven't taken the forage that the elk need because the sheep just went through, the elk will be right back there. If the sheep have kind of denuded the place, the elk are probably not coming back there because they're going to go somewhere else where there's better forage. So, have you ever taken your wife elk hunting? Oh man, we need to get my wife on this presentation and she can tell all the stories about when we went elk hunting, and she's got some good stories to tell. Yeah. You should see some of the deer she's shot. She's the real thing. Randy, if you were planning a meat hunt, would you choose an over-the-counter bull tag or an easy-to-draw cow tag? Not even a question. I'd pick a cow tag. If it was, I'm just here, I want to go get meat, I'm not really looking for this real challenge, this backcountry, some of the things we find by challenging ourselves for a backcountry bull elk experience, not even a question. I'd go get a cow tag. And I want to end it by saying, hunting cows is, don't think that that's like, oh, I would never do that. There's a lot to be said for hunting cow elk. The primary one, because of what was asked here, the food aspect. But there's so many great things about going out and hunting cows. You're participating in the conservation. You're one of the mechanisms to help keep numbers where the biologists and the game managers want them. You're going to get great food. Usually it's going to be a little less of a strenuous hunt. It can be more of a family type, bring the young ones with, bring the old ones with, whatever. Cow elk hunting, don't ever shy away from that. So, but with that, we've been at it for 45. Marcus, we're just barely getting to this. I start answering questions and I get off track about all the things that I wanted to talk about. You're the production guy. You need to keep me online. You need to keep me going. Didn't know you were a chemist too, Randy. Adhesion. Laughing out loud. Yeah, Brandon. That's right. Right? Adhesion, cohesion, right? All that stuff. Osmosis. People get that stuff mixed up. But anyhow, folks, really thank everybody for listening and tuning in. If you have more questions that are specific to hunting elk every year, bring them next week. I think next week we're going to try to wrap up, and I'll get more dialed in on the strategy of hunting elk every year and what it looks like when you do it as a beginner, or you've been in it 3, 4, 5 years, so you got some points in a few states. And okay, I've been doing this for 12 years, and you got a lot of points in a lot of states. So next week, let's try to answer questions that are focused on how to make sure you get to hunt elk every year. So thanks to Bowtech, Leupold, Onyx, Go Hunt, Tight Spot, Ripcord, and Black Gold. They're the ones who make this possible. Text Randy to 77453, right? Yeah, that's it, 77453. And thanks for watching. Are we done? I hope. All right.